Hello, everybody. As I said yesterday, I will be here Monday through Friday I'm going to make it 11 to 1. It's kind of the best slot. The only time that this may get preempted is if my husband or I have a doctor appointment because we tend to book our appointment in that golden range because then we avoid rush hour traffic in either direction. So that may be the only reason why I'll preempt that. And if that's the case, then I'll pre record one that I will post to this channel on what I wanted to talk about that day, but I'm unable to do it as a live broadcast. So, um, what's going on the Rote channel? As an update, I have now completed all of the movies as watch alongs for the uh, 99-cent level access to full reactions that Albert and I do across all the movies. I am now going to be working on the series ones and putting all of them up to get everybody caught up, at least for the full reactions. They are watch alongs. You get the first minute as a sync up. So with your copy of said show or what have you, some of them are Netflix series. I think we do Interview with a Vampire, which is AMC. So there are other platforms you'd have to be on to be able to see those. But be that as it may, for 99 cents a month, that helps us out financially. It also gives you our full reactions unedited. They're just straight through. We just show the first part of the movie for about a minute, and then after that, it goes to a wallpaper behind us of the movie's poster or what have you, so you know what we're watching. So those are going to be completed today for the movies because I've got them all queued up. I've been uploading them. I had like 5 or 6 I put up yesterday, but I also had a retirement party to go to, so I had to cut that short. But today I have nothing on the menu but Rote stuff today to get done. So I will be finishing that up. And speaking of Rote, actually, let me go look at our. Sorry for the reflection on my eyeglasses from the screen, but I'm making my way to our calendar because I wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up of who's going to be on the show over the next few weeks. So we have recording this Friday, we will be talking with Jane C. Watts, who has a book on dystopian science fiction novels set in the future. It confronts themes of polarization, digital silos, and the nature of truth. Sounds very interesting. She has a background in sociology with a minor in technology and society. So, that sounds like a really firm foundation to write such a story. Then we move on in the second week in October. We will be talking to Frank Pizzoli, who wrote a rather passionate enladen book about gay writers and their allies and their works. So it's kind of a commentary on queer activism and our queer culture as it stands. So that sounds really interesting, and that we'll be recording in the second week of this month. And all of these will be released on our YouTube channel the following week. So if we record it on a Friday, like say, for instance, when we talk to Jane this Friday, her episode will release on Saturday of the following week. That's kind of how the video portion goes. The audio portion will go Friday to Friday. So we'll record it on a Friday. The following Friday, the audio version gets released, and you can get that on all of the distribution points, be it Apple Podcasts, Google Play, what have you. They're all up there on those platforms. So you can catch up with them there if you just want to do the audio version, like when you're working out or out on a walk or what have you. That's an option for you. In the third week, we will be talking to Vincent Kutsenza. I hope I'm saying that right. Kusenza. And they are a historical mystery romance thriller writer. It's about intolerance in the mid-century America. So it's about the gay closeted social interactions that we queers had to deal with in the 1950s. And if you've watched Fellow Travelers, you kind of have a clue of what he's probably going to get at. So then on the final week of October, Halloween week, we will be talking to John Paul Keneally. And he is a screenwriter, and he wrote for Will and Grace, Ugly Betty, Two Broke Girls, Crazy Ones with Robin Williams. He does a lot of humor writing, and we are going to be talking about some of his works. So that's who's on deck for the month of October. So definitely keep an eye out for those. If you're looking to consume new queer content media in print form, we have you covered for the month of October. So please check those out if you're so inclined. Um, I kind of want to talk a bit today about some of the things that are going on that affect the queer community. Um, One of which I'm just gonna. This really doesn't have anything to do per se with the queer community directly, but it was some of the gayest shit I've ever seen in my life. So that whole Pete Keg's breath doing the thing with the generals and the fatty generals and the men wearing dresses and child, what the fuck was that all about? I don't understand how people can look at that man and take him seriously. For one, he's a solid drunkard. I mean, he and Janine Pirro are shit faced all the time. But it's just incredible to me that this man who had never risen to the ranks, most of our Department of Defense secretaries have a strong history in dealing with military issues in world politics issues, geopolitical issues, strategy, strategic concepts and such, and they've always been steeped in that. So, our Lloyd Austin, our previous one in the Biden administration, very well decorated military officer, definitely knew how all of that worked, how to get things moving. He definitely was a supportive friend to Zelensky. And for those who don't know, I am a staunch, as we all are at Rote, staunch Ukrainian supporters. I wear this bracelet since the war started, and you can see it's kind of deteriorating and falling apart, but it's in the colors of the Ukrainian flag. And I intend to keep wearing it until those people have the freedom they so richly deserve. Because, in my opinion, their story mirrors our story. They are fighting an oppressive, imperialistic regime that we fought against the British back in the day. So, I don't see any difference. And we had to go as Americans, as budding Americans, burgeoning on our own independence. We had to go to European power and ask for assistance from France and Spain. So to understand how America evolved is to also be empathetic and reasoned in our response to how Ukraine is needing our assistance and our definitely our help. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there that this is definitely some of the things that I've been kind of contemplating. But getting back to Pete Keg's breath, he went on this whole tirade about no fatties, no beardos. He sounded like he wanted, you know, the he wanted a Spartan army. He wanted them all to be bare chested with little skimpy outfits and spears and stuff. Bitch, we don't fight those wars anymore. Have you not been watching what's going on in Ukraine? It's fought with drones. So you can have a fat fuck who's really good at computer games guiding that shit. Nobody's out there fighting fist to fist. Nobody's out there, as a grunt doing. That's not how we fight wars now. You're not fucking tuned in, and only a drunkard would come up with the bullshit paper tiger crap that he came up with. And it was, I'm sorry, but the whole time he's sitting there, and I loved the fact that it was a complete Bugs Bunny moment where did something and all you got were crickets. It was generals and admirals, you pulled it off. You did your due diligence and your duty to the Constitution. Bravo. I cannot stress enough how important that is. Anyways, that's what I have to say about that. I may have further thoughts on it down the road, but for right now, that's kind of my first gist as I walked away from it. And Trump rambled and did stupid, you need to be loyal to me. No, fuck you, motherfucker. We are beholden to the Constitution, not your squirmy McCankles taco tits ass. Um, so that whole thing was a huge embarrassment. Then you had Trump going to the UN and making it, 10 times worse. The whole UN debacle was, somebody just shut that man up, shut him up somehow. Just, I would rather see fucked up AI versions of him than actually listen to him. Because at least with the AI ones, you can go, yeah, well, that's fucking false. So don't give it any air. But unfortunately, this is who we're stuck with. And I don't know that unless we get him on treasonous charges, which I'm telling you, there might be enough evidence for that, um, we're stuck with JD Vance as the follow up. But if Trump is caught in a treasonous scenario and he is convicted of said treason, then all of Trump's line of succession are pulled out of the mix. So that's about the only way we can get cleanly out of this if something of that nature happens. And they have just enough stupid people that do some stupid fucking shit that it's possible that that could happen. All right. So I kind of am just doing a wait and see and watch on this. I don't really take a lot of it to heart. I kind of watch some of the YouTube stuff and I'm watching it, and then they get to a part where they start supposing and supposing and I'm like, no, okay, we're done with that. I'll move on. So, and I kind of want to put that bug in your ear. If you're struggling with what's going on in the world, if you're finding it very difficult to consume media in this kind of thing, you need to take advantage of the move on, keep scrolling. Do what you have to keep some balance. Step away from your phone. I'm telling you, those fucking devices are a menace. We need to go back where phones are just fucking phones and people need to start talking to each other again. No more texting. I mean, it just gets ridiculous. Yes, it's helpful in certain situations, but we use it way too much as a crutch to not have to confront people face to face. We are a society with social norms that we have broken because we're using the veil of our phone and our keyboards to keep us from actually engaging. And it's really funny along those lines. I just watched a video on YouTube on FYP podcast, which is from the Bulwark, and there was a young guy on there who runs it. I forget the guy's name right now, but he had two of his friends on, and they were talking about the allure of nostalgia and how there was an AI video that was posted, I guess, to TikTok, and it went viral. And I have my thoughts on virality. We'll talk about that in a minute. But there was this video that went on and on about, when we were in the 80s. Now, I was a teen in the 80s, so I know of what I speak when I talk about the 80s. About how being in the 80s was so much nicer. We would hang with friends, we'd go to parties, we would socialize, we'd be in the mall, blah, blah, blah. And there is a romantic version of what happened in the 80s. And I found it really interesting to listen to these three younger men, all straight, presumably, that none of them gave me any queer indications, but they were all talking about how the advent of like Stranger Things becoming such a societal milestone or a checkpoint that they could all latch onto and see how society operated, even under those intense and really insanely wild storylines. But for those of us who grew up in that era and came up in that era, that show is really fucking spot on. The Duffer Brothers knew what they were doing. And I say new because they've already wrapped production. They're just doing all of the editing and that kind of stuff now. So, and we're about to get our first drop in around Thanksgiving. So, but what I kind of like to hear with these three guys that we're talking about, and I'll put a link down below to their video so you can go check it out. But what I liked about their discussion was that they did recognize that the allure of nostalgia of a time that none of them had been alive in. I think the oldest person was like approaching 40, and would have put him like right around the late 80s, being born and into the 90s. So he grew up in the 90s and the aughts. And even he, had to acknowledge that this romanticized version of seeing what the 80s was. There was a lot of really wonderful things. I think I grew up in the best time in the world the advent of all the new technologies coming out, the personal computer, cell phones, which were in its, they were fucking behemoths. They were a brick that was about this big. Um, and they were highly expensive. Only the super rich could have them. But it was new technology we knew was coming down the pipe. So we were in that transition. Gen X was in that transition between the analog world and the digital world. And which is why you have Gen Xers like um, Zuckerberg and Bezos and people who came up in my era who embraced the technology moving forward and then have kind of taken it to a weird ass extreme. This is where the nerds shall inherit the earth. It really becomes problematic because their vision of how they want to control the narrative is what's ruining all of us. And I think we as a society are becoming more and more sheep-like in accepting when somebody tells you something rather than digging in and doing your own thing. Which brings me to my other channel that I'm starting out. I have a few videos over there. I'm going to continue starting to make them at Queersay, and that's QWHEARSAY. And I'll put a link to that channel down in the description as well. But the channel is really there for me to bring things to an audience, things I think are rather interesting. I'm planning on doing queer true crime part in that series to talk about those issues that affected the queer community, serial killers, true crime as in any kind of crime, kind of thing. Because I think it's interesting to visit those parts of our history. I don't just want to present the most positive thing, although I will do that, but I also want to be well-rounded and talk about some of the darker things that happen to our community. So those will be part of it as well. But over at Queersay, the idea behind that channel, and I encourage you to go subscribe over there and follow along with what I'm going to be outputting on that channel. And I'm going to do it on a weekly basis. Every Saturday, I'm going to record. I'll do a live stream and I'll set up some things that I want to watch and talk about from a queer content perspective. But the idea behind the channel is that I'm going to bring you things that I think are interesting, that are of note to our community and our allies who also consume queer content. And I want to kind of bring it to you, but let you make the decision. The idea is that everything I say is merely hearsay. It's queer say, coming from a queer man. It's queer say until you do the work, you make the decision, you reason it out. I'm just merely presenting what I found, and we have a little talk about that. So those will be on Saturday. I haven't really figured out a time. I guess tomorrow when I broadcast this, I'll tell you what time Saturday I will be doing it. But it's definitely something that I want to do on a weekly basis over on Queersay, and they're going to be a little longer, a little more in depth, a little more of an interesting chain of things that I think could be related or tangentially related to each other. But I just want to have that kind of a channel where I really look at the community as a whole and really kind of get different voices coming into it. As I said in yesterday's broadcast, I started on the 1st, and I will be doing this Monday through Friday from 11 to 1 p.m. Pacific U.S. Coast time, whether it's daylight savings or standard. It'll always be 11 to 1. And I kind of want to just have both of these channels where I have an ability to talk to you about some of the things that I think are going on. One of the things I do want to bring up is that a lot of people are not willing to do the work anymore. And I'll get my phone down here and I drop my remote. This bad boy, our phones are both an amazing piece of technology, and they are also the biggest detriment to society. I think, especially Gen Z and Gen Alpha, I've noticed their reticence to committing things to memory, and because they think, oh, well, I have my memory, it's right here. And the thing is, yeah, you can use that. I mean, it's no different than if I went to the library back in the day and went to a card catalog and looked up shit and tried to find books that talked about that stuff or news articles in the old readers that they used to have that you saw in Stranger Things when they would look stuff up. Um, but it was a little bit slower pace. We had to do the work, really do the legwork to try and find the answer to those kinds of, whatever was present at the time, be it an urban legend, something we heard about through the grapevine that just seemed fantastical. You had to do some real legwork to sort out whether or not it was true or not. 99.9% of the time it wasn't. It was just bullshit. But it was a much simpler time in that respect. And so you could get away with starting some stupid ass urban legend myth and it would take off because people really had no easy way to find those kinds of answers. Now we do. And unfortunately, I think it's created two generations that I can see where the commitment to reasoning things out for themselves and not just regurgitating something they saw that someone else said, not digging into where the source of that thing they said. They just accept it at full face value. And as long as it fits their own narrative, it must be true. And that's where we get into these conversation bubbles and when we get into these social media bubbles. While I have been a lifelong Democrat, I tend to think of myself as more of an independent. If I hear of a good idea and I think someone's pressing a good idea, I will listen. I will give them air. One of the things I think that society has not paid attention to, there are two things actually, two main things that will be a hallmark of me doing these broadcasts. The first thing is perception. Perceptions govern everything we do. We hold on to them dearly, and yet we give them no due. And by that, I mean you have life experiences, you have the experiences of your friends and loved ones and family members who have gone through things, and you have molded your perception of the working world based on those kinds of experiences, and it tells you what you come to believe is true. The problem is that those perceptions can be easy enough. It basically that they're saying that you're not, how do I put this? They're not taking the time to actually reason what is going on and whether or not what they're molding into their perception of the working world, if it's actually true. Most people nowadays accept something they hear within their own sphere of their current understanding of the world, and they don't challenge it. They don't look elsewhere, which is why you have the Fox News group, all the senior citizens who are, now that I've moved into my sixth decade, as the oldest part of Gen X, I'm now entering senior territory. So I kind of see what's going on there. I do have some words for my fellow Gen Xers because some of them are just, they've lost the fucking plot on a lot of stuff. But the thing is, we don't really challenge what we hold true and what we perceive because it's comfortable to not hold those things as close as we can. So what I'm trying to get at is you can have your perceptions, you can operate with what you know or what you've experienced or those that you love and keep close to you, what they've experienced and what lessons you've drawn or conclusions you've drawn from those experiences. But just know that that's not the whole story. There are elements at play that maybe your friends or your relatives haven't conveyed to you that actually would change that position, that would change your perception of the situation, of any given situation. And that's what you need to keep in the back of your head at all times. Where is this coming from? What is driving it? Is it what I think it is, or is it something else? The ability to question what your own life experiences have taught you at every turn. That's a lot of work. And a lot of people in this day and age don't want to do the work. They think that life is too complicated, it's too hard as it is. Well, a lot of what it is you driving it with this bullshit that's on this phone. Stop scrolling. the best thing you can do for your mental health, get off of social media. Maybe limit yourself to one platform. That's what I do. It's this platform, YouTube. That's all I do. I'm no longer doing stuff on Facebook or any of the other socials out there because I need that ability to have life balance. So, one of the things I suggest to you, and like I said yesterday, I get the irony of me talking about, turning off social media, and yet I'm broadcasting this on social media. I get the irony of that statement, but I just want to be able to have these discussions, to bring this information to you, to say, question what you take as um, your beliefs or your reasoning out. Did you reason it fully? Did you challenge it to see if it holds true, that it holds up to scrutiny? I'll give you an example. We have the straw man of, well, I say straw man, straw being of trans people. Well, I'm sorry, but 99.99% of y'all have never met a fucking trans person. These people are in my community. I know many more of them than most of you ever will. Okay. So and that goes with that old saying, until you've met someone who is and actually get to understand their lives, you might fear it. And we all act negatively when we're fearful. It is hardwired into our DNA to fear what we don't understand. And that's a survival technique. But the problem is, people have come to use it as a crutch so they don't have to challenge themselves. They like the comfortability of not questioning what they believe and where they got those beliefs from. And to that point, realize that belief is an essence of faith, and faith operates in the vacuum of knowledge. So if you don't have any knowledge about something, you have to take a leap of faith. That's why it's called faith. And you need to understand that there is work there still to do. You've got a gap in conscious reasoning and challenging your own position to see that it holds up. And that's not merely ticking the boxes. Oh, do I still feel this way? Oh, do I still feel that way? That's not challenging. That's going out and finding opposing opinions, listening to what they have to say. Now, in that, it's also a bit of work in you have to reason whether or not the person you're listening to has any credibility or authority in what they're saying. And that gets to one of my second point out of the two things that will become hallmarks of these broadcasts. First was perception, and the second is words have power. But nobody finishes the sentence. Words have power, but only that which the audience grants it. The audience is in control. So you need to understand Charlie Kirk did not become that powerful of a conservative prognosticator and obliviator that was out there just bellowing into the wild all his strange fucking ideas. But he did not get that way without people who were willing audience members who ate that shit up. He was cooking and they ate it up. Again, the power comes from the audience. Look at theater. Look how many shows on Broadway may flop because there just wasn't an audience for it. Again, the audience has power. They have the power to change the narrative. They have the power because they often vote with their dollars in whatever is happening. The Jimmy Kimmel situation, prime example. The audience had the power to change that narrative and they used it. So just realize when you hear people say, the N word or the F word or, or the R word, whatever it is, the only power that word has is what you, the listener, gave it. If you think this motherfucker is just a wailing, nonsensical moron, like our president and vice president and secretaries, and the whole fucking administration, who are we kidding? If you think they're batshit crazy, don't give it any air. Just don't give it space to breathe. Suffocate it. Just say, yeah, that's irrelevant. I have nothing to do with what you're saying. If you stifle and cut off the oxygen to their diatribe, you will have the power to shut them down. The problem is most Americans like being in the bubble they're in. It makes them feel safe. They don't want to challenge what they believe or what they were told to believe. Again, operating in the vacuum of knowledge. There's no knowledge there. There's only supposition and blaming and finger pointing, and all of that is emotional ad hominem attacks on marginalized communities and people. Okay. And if somebody's going after a marginalized community, you have a duty to question that and say, where is that coming from? I'll give you an example. There's a great video that I just watched last night from Jimmy the Giant. And if you aren't a Jimmy the Giant fan, you really should be. The guy does some amazing videos. I'm so glad that YouTuber Thurston over at Live Luca, he once said that he liked watching his videos, and I checked him out. I'm thoroughly on board with Jimmy the Giant. Great YouTuber, does some really quality work. He just recently released a video about the Islamification of Britain. And I found it really fascinating because it was applicable to the United States as well. Every point he brings up was a point showing how the right uses emotive language to provoke a fearful response from the recipients, again, the ones who have power. Remember that you in the audience have the power, not the speaker, not the person who's blabbing in front of the microphone like me. You have the power. You either give it air or you don't. You say it's irrelevant. And people who obliviate and just blabber on and on about bullshit, if they were cut off and given no air, if they were on their soapbox in Speaker's Corner in, I believe it's Kensington Park, maybe it's Hyde Park, I don't remember which park in Britain, but they have that Speaker's Corner. It's famous in Britain. If the crowd moves on and that person's just bellowing into the ether, what power does he have? The power is in the people. That's why we say we the people. And that comes from my peoples. That's the same three words that appears in the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. We the people. Our founding fathers who wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, they were all Iroquoian buffs. And the Haudenosaunee people are the Iroquois. And my dad used to live on the reservation, and so he comes from that world. I can only claim descendancy, because we're matrilineal line, and I get it from my father, so I can't enroll in the nation, but I am a descendant, and so I'm very much in the native sphere. I look at their politics. I look at what's going on in the community at all times, and as a queer person, a two-spirited person within the community, I have a unique perspective in listening to a lot of what's going on in that community. But I also consume queer content from the Black community, from the Asian community. I want to get what everyone is dealing with, because I'll guarantee you, as queer people, there's a common thread there, that we're all dealing with the same bullshit. And especially now in this divisive times, we're definitely feeling the oppressive nature of what's going on. So I think one of the things that we as a community, the queer community, LGBTQ plus, IA plus, the alphabet mafia, as the straights like to call us, we need to really start acting like a community. And by that, I mean, stop throwing shade at one another. Let's save the shade for those who oppose us. Just stop with it. Little queer boys, femboys, I know you've been bullied. I came up with that kind of shit too. But I had to grow up and get over it and get to the point where I'm now very appreciative of my fellow queer people. I embrace them, I support them, I show them as much love as possible, because we cannot tear ourselves down from within when we're being attacked by everyone without. Okay, so let's stop with the shade amongst ourselves. Let's stop with the reads amongst ourselves. That's bullshit. Just stop. All of us need to stop. We've got bigger fish to fry, namely an orange carp that's running things. I say running things in quotes. Um, but yeah, my whole thrust with doing these is to not only talk about things that I think are important in our community, also the author community, because we are predominantly a literary podcast for the queer community. Um, so words matter. Words do matter. Words have power. But again, only the power the audience grants it. So just realize as an audience member, you wield what works and what doesn't work. If a show flops on TV, it didn't have an audience, or it preceded an audience that may show up in future generations. That has also happened. Um, there are a lot of times where creatives create something that has prescience and has relevance to society at large, but may not garner that lauding of the work until sometimes after the creator themselves have passed on. Um, and some of the best works that are out there that we cherish today were written by people who never saw the fame or the adoration or the adulation that they so richly deserve for creating those masterworks of literacy. And so sometimes your work speaks to future generations more than it does the current one. And like I said, a lot of people don't take all of these things, all these variables into consideration. They just hear something that fits within their current narrative, their current perception of the working world, and they run with it. And they say, okay, I've been validated. I know I'm right. No, you don't. You don't know. You're making an assumption there, and that's a big ass to make an assumption. You're making an ass out of yourself. Don't do it. Question your positions. Challenge yourself. Do the work. You'll be a better person for it. And definitely limit what the fuck you do with this damn thing. All right, moving on. Albert and I have been really enjoying a lot of the queer horror movies that we've been doing for this month's reactions. We recorded them in September, so they're all done now, and I'm in the process of editing them out. And the full watch along versions are going to be up on our YouTube channel as member only. So again, for 99 cents, less than $1 every month, you can have access to all of the watch alongs as we post them. And as we record them, I will be posting the watch alongs immediately. So you will get them way before anybody else, even from our Patreon. You will get them quicker. So it's a good way to, throw $1 our way, a little less than $1, and still, be able to help us keep the lights on, keep things running, because there are costs involved with all of this, be it software, be it subscriptions to art, pieces that we need to use for our artwork that goes up on this, the software we have to buy and maintain. So just be aware there are costs, as well as internet access and all that kind of stuff. We just need to make sure we're keeping those bills paid. So Vance and I have been doing it out of our pocket for the last 10 years. But we see it as a service to our community because we want to be a repository. We now have, I think we're approaching our 1,000th episode. I tend to think we're like in the high 800s, maybe moving into 900s now. We will be crossing that barrier into 1,000 audio episodes that are up there. You can go to ropepodcast.com, and there are the distribution links to all the various platforms where podcasts are distributed, and we are on all of them. Definitely check out the audio version if you don't have time to watch the video. The audio ones are released every Friday, I believe at 2:30 a.m. Eastern time. or is it Central? No, Vance is Central. So I think it's 2:30 a.m. on Friday, and it's available, I would say, pretty much instantaneously from all the other distribution points. So definitely need to check that out. I will also, on Monday's broadcast, so the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, on October 6th, I will be having some new designs to share for our merchandise that we're putting up through Printify. We've moved away from Shopify and Gelato. There were a lot of fulfillment issues we were running into there, so we decided to stop that. We did have some orders out there that I had to refund and kick back and sent them a note saying we will be putting up a new store and we welcome them to create their order. But I will have new designs going up that some of which I'm pretty proud of. I think they're kind of funny. So, and I also want to start doing like queer movie quotes shirts where I'll do a line drawing of the character in a famous queer movie with a quote that I think is relevant to our community or is funny from those flicks, and kind of create a whole um, genre of shirts with queer quotes that I think will be relevant to people and people will really take to them. So all of that new stuff will be starting to become available. And as I add new designs, I will share them with you as they go up on the Printify store. So once all of that's in place and starts rolling, I will definitely share those with you. I am the one who does the designs for all the merchandise stuff. So it's kind of on me. I do all the video editing and I do all of that. Vance pretty much takes care of the audio work and the distribution stuff and all of the admin stuff because it's done through his production company. And by the way, I would like to give a shout out to Vance. If you are an author and you're looking for a great voice artist, he is a SAG-AFTRA voice artist. So definitely check him out. I think he even has a reel that he can send you, so you can hear the level of work he does. He has an incredible voice, and I think that you would find his work to be of top-notch quality. So if you are a queer author and you're looking for someone, definitely go to vancebastian.com and reach out to him and see what he can do for you for a quote and to get some of that done. But it's definitely um, he's really wonderful, great person to work with. All right, that's that. um, I guess I don't really have a whole lot more content for today, so I may wrap this up early. I am trying to plan for pretty much Monday, picking this up full steam for 2 hours. But at this juncture, I just kind of wanted to cover what we're doing at Rote, what's going on with it, some of my thoughts on current events. I do have some thoughts on the whole Charlie Kirk issue that I'm going to kind of be compiling, and I'll have that on my Queer Say channel on Saturday. I'm going to talk a bit about that. And tomorrow I'll have the time that I'm setting for that. I'm not quite sure when that will be. I have to kind of work out how my day is going to go on Saturdays going forward. So I kind of want to fit it into what else I've got going on in the house. So, but I will let you know tomorrow what that final kind of outcome is. So these first few episodes are probably going to be a lot shorter than the 2 hour window that I set up, but they will always start at 11 a.m. On Pacific US time. And then starting from October 6th, I will start doing them as a 2 hour clip and I will have things to share with you that I've pulled forward. I'm already compiling my next week with all of the clips and stuff that I want to talk about. And basically, what I want to do is I want to take current events and I want to do like a high view of it, showing examples of things that I think are very interesting and things that we can work on as a community to reach the right perception, the right conclusions, a more reasoned position. And I do invite you to join these live sessions and actually chat with me about it because I love those kinds of conversations. I'm not one to run away from the tough conversations. In fact, I tend to lean into them. They're kind of my thing. So definitely no ad hominem attacks. I don't want people taking out other people. So, be civil, have a reason point to bring up. No shade, no shade, no shade. Let's keep that clear. No reading. Okay, let's keep it civil. But the idea is, I don't mind having those tough discussions, because only then do we get into the meat sauce of what we're dealing with, and we get to really fully understand what's in play. I think too many of us work superficially on social media and what we consider getting our news information. I anything I watch, I always question the source of what it is. And I definitely want you to go check out the Jimmy the Giant video that I will reference down below. His channel is phenomenal. I'm telling you guys, if you are not a Jimmy the Giant follower, definitely should add him to your list of channels to follow. He doesn't need me to promote him. He's got a very large channel, but I just find his video essays on very, very important topics to be so well reasoned. And he came from the alt right. He actually was in that sphere. And then he has a video about how he left it and why he left it and how much it is now driving everything that he does. So, really, really interesting man. Very, very reasoned video analysis. And I think this last one I saw, which actually is the second part of a two-part series, the first one was, why are they lying to you about immigration? And again, this is pretty much UK centric because that's where he is. But I find a lot of what he's talking about, because American politics does affect British politics. And in fact, in this day and age, they are being more and more influenced by what's going on here in the States. So the Americanization of their political sphere is being very, very dominated by how American politics are playing out here. They've got their own version of MAGA. They have Turning Point UK, which Charlie Kirk started. They had a recent rally that was quite large. But again, one of the things Jimmy does in his breakdown of why you're being lied to and the Islamification of the UK, and he dives into the numbers. He explains to you where all these come from. And he does it from a perspective of what is the source for all these numbers that conservatives constantly use. And he delves down into how much the data is manipulated or straight up lied about. They make up shit and put it out there and put a big fancy name on it, and it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. So definitely should check out his video. It'll give you a clear idea of where I'm going with these broadcasts, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1. Pretty much starting on the 6th. That's when I'll start doing the 2-hour windows. But today and tomorrow, I think I'm just going to do maybe a little less than an hour, just kind of gearing up for what's to come. But definitely check out Jimmy's two-parter. I think you will find his work really relevant, and I think it is applicable to the United States because Islamophobia does exist here as well. But he does it with a way of actually looking at the culture and understanding what's really going on and how a lot of the perceptions that are being driven by the right about the Muslim culture is driven by what the elders who are more hardline than their children or grandchildren who come up in the Western society after they've immigrated to the UK, and how they have adopted a more Western out view of life. And so by living in the British culture, those children and children's children are now much more westernized, and they actually see things from the Western point of view than their parents or grandparents, who are much more hardlined about the propaganda, the Islamic propaganda that is perpetuated by those in power who are, let's face it, authoritarians. So the perceptions of what happens and how it's manipulated and what drives it and what facts are being used or not used, there's a point where he shows that clearly what happens, definitely do make a difference. And you, as the audience, again, have the power to decide if it's relevant or not. You have the power to reason it out. Or as Rosie quoted Tom Hanks in A League of Their Own. Use your brain. You know that lump 3 feet above your ass? Use it. It was given to you for a reason. Don't just accept what somebody tells you if it fits your current narrative. Maybe you should question your own narrative. All right. Well, that's it for today. Again, I invite anyone to come join me on these, and I'm willing to have discussions and to chat about these things. I think they're highly relevant to not only our queer community, but to the community at large and even world politics. The world is in a sorry state right now, and America carries much of the blame for that. And, I've got thoughts. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to cover a lot of what's going on with the farming community in the United States, and also Brian the veteran. I'm really interested in what he's doing, but I also have some thoughts on that. And if you don't know who he is, go check out Permaculture, Park Rose Permaculture, I think it's the name of her channel. She has a great video that introduces him. And I found his video he's a veteran, and I found his video where he's saying, we need to come together. He's doing a call out to everybody saying, set your bullshit aside. We need to fix this because it's the rich who are eating us alive, and we need to focus on what's real. And I find his narrative to be quite refreshing, but at the same time, I have thoughts about how it tries to circumvent the crow that they need to eat to understand the depths of the damage that they've done that got us here. So I have thoughts on that, and that's what I'll be covering tomorrow. All right. So until next time, this is Baz Collins from Rope Podcast saying, keep doing the work, keep sorting out, keep reasoning. I know it's work. I get it. But in these trying times, believe me, if we could go back to 1938 in Germany, I guarantee you we would find Germans who are feeling the exact same way with the Nazi regime. So be very, very aware. This playbook has happened before. Pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention. And I'll talk to you again tomorrow.